Aloha mai kako, you are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Aloha and welcome to Hawaii Political Reporter. Thanks for watching. Tonight our focus is on the immoral, unconstitutional, and deadly use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, foreign and domestic drone capabilities and policy, and the new problem of drone strike anonymity, the existing use of drones domestically that can tase, shoot, and launch grenades. We'll have highlights of Rand Paul's stand against killing U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Then in Wales, we see how a drone base there is causing psychological and environmental harm. Stay tuned. This is a very important issue that will dramatically alter our lives and liberty.
Now, you could be blown up at a cafe in San Francisco. Is this just hyperbole? Or what do you think of the policy now? Does it need
If you had asked me that 10 years ago, I would say it's hyperbole. But 10 years ago, we did not know that we would engage what some people call torture, I call torture waterboarding. Now it's perfectly acceptable by so many people. When things get as the way they are, people begin to accept things that we would not have accepted before. What we have here is the possibility of what is nothing less than Orwellian, that there is no longer a sense of privacy. It's very easy, and I was on a panel discussion that the Writers Guild had last May, in which the subject of which was drone warfare. And people talked about this is a new form of warfare. It's like the atomic bomb, gunpowder, and now it's drones, and everybody was for it. 7,000 miles away, where I was, and was under the drones twice, when you don't have any idea, and when I was a prisoner of the Taliban for day after day after day, when that drone is overhead, you don't know from 1 second to the next if it's going to come down and blow you away and blow everyone around you away, and there is nothing that you can do about it. It eats away at you. I still think about it. It tears something inside your soul that you are totally helpless, that a man or a woman are looking at a screen far away, like God looking down upon you, and there is nothing that you can do.
Yeah, it's a certain type of sort of mental torture almost, it sounds like.
And you think of all these people in different parts of the world that have to live with this day by day.
This is Rosa Brooks from Georgetown University. She writes, if you were worried about whether it was okay for the U.S. government to secretly kill an American citizen overseas, you can relax. The Justice Department says killings are hunky-dory as long as some, quote, informed high-level official decides that citizens pose a, quote, imminent threat and capture would be, quote, unfeasible. You and I have talked about this before related to what Eric Holder said in a speech that he gave, but this provides a much more detailed legal rationale. What is the argument presented in this document?
Well, the first thing to note is that this document, right at the outset, says that it is not attempting to determine the necessary legal conditions for drone strikes targeting American citizens. So it's laying out guidelines, but it also acknowledges at the outset that perhaps this is not necessary, that there might be other guidelines, weaker standards even, although it's hard to imagine what those could possibly be. The problem here is that it gives a document that gives the appearance of limitations on the president's power to target Americans for assassination, but then defines the terms that it uses in a way that makes those limits meaningless. So it says that a citizen can be targeted if they pose an imminent threat, but then it qualifies that to clarify that an imminent threat doesn't necessarily mean that there's any specific known attack that is planned in the near future. So what does imminent mean there? Well, nothing as far as we can tell.
Charlie Savage and Scott Shane say in the New York Times it adopts an elastic definition of imminent, as you said, saying it is not necessary for a specific attack to be in process when a target is found if the target is generally engaged in terrorist activities aimed at the United States. Generally engaged seems like...
The key here is that when the document says someone who is generally engaged in terrorist activities, what it means is someone who's been accused by some high-level official in the intelligence community of being involved in those activities. Certainly we know that these strikes in the past have not always necessarily killed dangerous terrorists. We know that the 16-year-old son of Anwar al-Awlaki, the al-Qaeda-affiliated cleric, was killed in a drone strike, and it's hard to believe that he was a senior operational leader of any kind. So there's no requirement, of course, that any kind of external check verify that someone is engaged in terrorist activities. This can be done without judicial approval and essentially in secret. We know about for American citizens who have been killed in drone strikes. But there's no requirement that they disclose this either before or after the fact. So there's no one, in effect, checking their work, confirming that people targeted and killed really are guilty of what they're accused of.
The president acknowledged that this kind of program existed at some point last year. Jay Carney, in being asked about this program, said, "These strikes are legal, they are ethical, and they are wise. The U.S. government takes great care in deciding to pursue an al-Qaeda terrorist, to ensure precision, and to avoid loss of innocent life." Now, on the matter of innocent life, remember the New York Times last year detailed the fact that there's a great deal of loss of innocent life, but also that there is a presumption of terrorist activity with the people that they are targeted.
Well, so it's very easy to convince yourself that you're taking great care to avoid the loss of innocent life if you don't do very much to check after the fact whether you've killed innocent people. So certainly with strikes not involving American citizens, we know that if a bunch of essentially 18 to 25-year-old Arab males are killed, they're presumed to have been militants. No one is going after the fact to see whether these are actually people who were involved in something, violent activity.
When we talked about this last time, you noted that Eric Holder had a very expansive definition, or a narrow definition, depending on how you're looking at it, of what constitutes due process in this whole thing. The judicial branch, for whatever their role might be, seems to be pushed to the side here.
Sure, and judges have really so far been willing to step aside to say that it's not appropriate for them to review this. But we do have a standard for the conditions under which an American citizen who is guilty of treason can be punished and indeed executed for it. It requires things like the statement of two people in open court, not a decision by a high-level intelligence official who is then neither required to inform either the target or anyone else of that decision or present evidence for it publicly. One of the disturbing things about this is that, this is a white paper summarizing a much longer and more detailed legal analysis from the Office of Legal Counsel. Congress had that a year ago. The ACLU has been trying through Freedom of Information to get that out. This is obviously a document that had no sensitive, classified national security information that imperils the safety of the United States. It's not clear why this couldn't have been released a year ago. It's not clear why at least a redacted version of the full legal analysis of this can't be released to the public. So, we're doing this not only with the actual decision of who to kill and why being made in secret, but even the abstract legal justification, the basis for the administration's claims that this is a legal program being kept secret. And that seems fairly fundamentally contrary to the principles of a liberal democracy.
A lot of people have compared this to the Bush torture memos.
Right. This is certainly another case of the administration taking upon itself the power to give the executive authority to authorize things that we have traditionally been uncomfortable with in this country, and keeping secret not only, again, the details of those decisions, but the legal justification for them. And certainly even in the fuzziness about the definition of imminence, there is a clear echo of President Bush's justification of effectively preemptive war, that we are entitled to attack in self-defense, not just when we know that an adversary is about to attack us, but when we think they may at some future point attack us.
One of the top YouTube channels, Vlogbrothers, has these brothers, John and Hank. And John is going to have the opportunity to talk with the President of the United States.
Thursday, I'm going to be in a Google Plus hangout with the President of the United States.
Apparently, he's planning to ask frivolous questions about pennies.
And how do we still live in a world with pennies?
And I agree with this comment. Hey, John, could you tell the President to stop sending drones to Pakistan? 'Cause, there's children dying there. Yeah, I feel like it should be a major priority. I think so too. I think more of a priority than pennies. I've watched many videos about the situation with the so-called war on terrorism, and one of the major complaints of people living in the Middle East is that Westerners think the blood of Muslims is cheap. Well, I don't think it's cheaper than pennies. So how about you just save the penny question until we're not killing innocent people in other countries? And hear this? That's a $20 bill. That could be yours if you ask that question about stopping sending the drones, which he has no legal authority to do. And I'll throw in another $10 if you say Your Majesty when addressing him. Because he obviously asked him, why does he still call himself the president when he doesn't abide by his oath to the Constitution? How can you actually be the President of the United States if you don't abide by the U.S. Constitution? He had no authority to involve us in a war with Libya. And not only does he deny it's a war, he denies its hostilities. This man is lying to us, making jackasses out of us, and you want to run into the Google Hangout and play the fool and ask questions about pennies? Come on. So here's a great question by Miriam Gross. Don't make fellow Americans look like fools here talking about pennies and crap. We know why Google contacted you. Don't give them what they want. Okay? You hear that? That's $20. That could be yours if you ask the question, why does he think he has the right to violate international law by killing people with drones? Why does he have the right to violate the Constitution by going after American citizens on his say-so? But please ask him why he thinks he has the right to start wars with other countries. Ask him why he thinks he has the right to violate international law by making threats to use force against a foreign nation. And we have a major media that thinks this is a big game to allow this guy to ignore our Constitution. And we obviously have corporate people who are selecting YouTubers who apparently will be all too willing to play the role of a fool. How about every question you ask be substantive and real life and death questions? Let's see some fireworks. Hold his feet to the fire and just ask him real questions. Everyone watching this, contact him, contact John and ask him to be serious, for him not to throw this opportunity away. And isn't it the role of Congress to worry about pennies? Obama's already made a statement about pennies, and you could read about that in the link in the video description. So don't waste time with the question about pennies. We know his position, but it's up to Congress whether they want to do it or not. The main thing is this man is abusing his position. He's abusing his position as president and using powers he has no right to use. He's doing things the President of the United States has no right to do.
The U.S. is dodging accusations its drones had killed up to 9 people last month in Pakistan, saying Pakistan's own military could be to blame. Phantom strikes are becoming a problem because it means people are being killed and no one knows who's to blame. RT's Marina Patnaik reports.
America has long been considered the leader of drone warfare, dominating the skies in the Middle East, Africa, and most recently here in the U.S. In Pakistan, the CIA has reportedly carried out some 330 drone strikes since 2004. But a new problem involving the unmanned aerial weapon is emerging. The problem of anonymous drones. When 2 drone strikes killed 9 people in Pakistan's tribal belt last month, Islamabad filed an official protest with the American embassy. However, U.S. officials say that Washington has not carried out any attacks in Pakistan since January. Instead, U.S. officials have pointed their fingers to Pakistan's Air Force. It is impossible to know who executed the strikes, but some experts believe that the situation can soon open up a Pandora's box of anonymous drone strikes around the world.
It's lending itself to anonymity by the very nature of the technology, that the remote control can be from hundreds or often thousands of miles away. I think this is one of the corrosive and dangerous impacts of proliferation of the use of drones, and it has to be said that the United States government has led the way in a negative sense around the planet in terms of normalizing the use of drone attacks across international borders.
As of last month, at least 50 countries are reportedly using drones. In the United States, a new revelation has come to light. The Attorney General says that Washington can authorize lethal drone strikes on Americans on American soil without trial. In a testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Eric Holder says that under extraordinary circumstances, like September 11th, the president could order strikes to protect the homeland, the same type of drone strikes that have been used around the world to fight the war on terror. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
The Attorney General's admission that drone strikes could be used inside America angered members of the Senate. Republican Rand Paul launched an old-school 13-hour filibuster, demanding the Obama administration promise not to target its own people. As a result, Democrats who control the chamber were forced to delay a vote on John Brennan's nomination as new head of the CIA. An Alitalia pilot has told controllers he recently spotted an unmanned aircraft as he came into land at JFK International Airport in New York. Author and academic Mark Mason says that now more drones than ever are available. They pose new dangers and are at greater risk of being misused.
The report was made. At this point, the information is not available as to was it a model airplane, was it a surveillance drone. It was reported to be relatively small, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet, and relatively small in terms of drones. So at this point, we don't have the information, but what we do know with a certainty is that drones are here to stay. They're going to be available not only to governments, but to individuals, and they will diversify in terms of their cheapness and size. They're going to be made. The U.S. Air Force has already announced that it's going to be making drones that are the size of an insect that can assassinate people. So this technology is here.
Hawaii Political Reporter is not owned, influenced, or an agent of corporate, government, or special interest. We are a local, honest, independent source of political news and commentary. Our primary goals are to promote awareness of the non-aggression principle and to reduce violence, war, and death. To promote economic liberty, prosperity, and true civil rights as in the U.S. Constitution. To promote transparency and to bring awareness of corruption in government and the collusion at all levels with big-moneyed individuals and special interests to deprive the people of true choice of government. Government that is truly by and for the people, for prosperity and freedom.
Unmanned drones that can tase or shoot a person from the sky and can even launch a grenade. These are the latest toys the Houston, Texas SWAT team, the police department, purchased using its Homeland Security grant given to it by the federal government. Is this the next phase of the police state, where cops can play video games with our civil liberties and with our lives? Here with the frightening analysis is Lou Rockwell, Mises Institute founder and chair. Lou, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Judge, great to be with you.
Say it ain't so. Say that the police department of Houston does not have unmanned drones from the sky that can tase someone or kill them, as the military has been doing overseas.
No, it's true, and of course the federal government is, as you mentioned, supplying these things. They're all federal agents, various federal agencies have them. Undoubtedly the state police will have them, the local police. Maybe we can look forward to dogfights among all the Predator drones, but of course they also are developing X-rays that can see through the walls of your house. They can spy on you in your backyard while you're sunbathing. And as you say, they can taser you, shoot a baton into your head, or even kill you with a grenade. And we're supposed to feel safe about this. We're supposed to think this is to fight terrorism, when of course it actually is terrorism. Most of what we're told about terrorism is, I think, phony baloney. But of course the federal government is establishing a police state, cameras everywhere, on every light pole,
right.
Reading our emails, listening to our phone calls, and now shoot you in your backyard if they don't like what you're doing. No trial, no jury, just boom.
Well, it starts with the federal government. The Patriot Act unleashed thousands of federal agents to write their own search warrants, to capture the keystrokes on our computers when we use them, to get our legal records, our telephone records, even our medical records. Now the federal government is going to give money to local police departments. I think you just made a very good point, Lou, and that is, if Houston has this, Dallas is going to want it. If Dallas has it, I'm just naming cities in Texas to start with, Austin's going to want it. If those 3 police departments are going to have it, the Texas Rangers, the name for their state police, are going to want it. And if Texas has it, can New York and California and Illinois and New Jersey be far behind?
Judge, just the existence of the SWAT teams, which are militarized, armored units, nothing like what local police used to be, are themselves a sign of the police state. And now they're going to have these drones. And it's not only the big cities. Every small town, every small city is going to have their drones. The federal government, among all the other wonderful things they're doing for us, giving us a depression and so forth, want to drone-ize the whole country, make us all vulnerable. Anytime they don't like what we're doing, boom. And, you've got nothing to say about it. Maybe you can bring a suit afterwards that they'll say is too secret to be examined, right, and you're out of court.
And much of this has happened without any popular vote. Decisions by bureaucrats and law enforcement started with the federal government. One hand, the Patriot Act, and the other hand, the president deciding to become judge, jury, and executioner on an American in a foreign country. He doesn't need a trial. We don't have time for a trial. The evidence of guilt is so overwhelming. Right. We know their argument. What can we do about this, Lou Rockwell?
Well, of course, we also have to focus on the, what should we call it, the security industrial complex. I mean, the vast network of industries that are making so much money off these drones and all the rest of the police, the tanks that local cops have and so forth. So I think we need to educate ourselves. How about reading your new book would be one thing people could do, or reading your previous book on the Patriot Act. We have to educate ourselves. We have to understand what our freedoms are, who our enemies are, and it's not some guy in Yemen. The enemy is in Washington, D.C., and in every other capital, state capital, local government office building. That's where the enemy is. Those are the people who want to take away our freedom, are taking away our freedoms, taking all our money, too.
When I asked the president, can you kill an American on American soil, it should have been an easy answer. It's an easy question. It should have been a resounding and unequivocal no. The president's response, he hasn't killed anyone yet. We're supposed to be comforted by that. The president says, I haven't killed anyone yet. He goes on to say, and I have no intention of killing Americans, but I might. Is that enough? Are we satisfied by that? Are we so complacent with our rights that we would allow a president to say he might kill Americans, but he will judge the circumstances? He will be the sole arbiter. He will be the sole decider. He will be the executioner-in-chief if he sees fit. Now, some would say he would never do this. Many people give the president they give him consideration. They say he's a good man. I'm not arguing that he's not. What I'm arguing is that the law is there and set in place for the day when angels don't rule government. Madison said that the restraint on government was because government will not always be run by angels. This has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with whether the president is a Democrat or a Republican. Were this a Republican president, I'd be here saying exactly the same thing. No one person, no one politician should be allowed to judge the guilt, to charge an individual, to judge the guilt of an individual, and to execute an individual. It goes against everything that we fundamentally believe in our country. This isn't even new to our country. There's 800 years of English law that we found our tradition upon. We found it upon the Magna Carta from 1215. We found it upon Morgan of Glamorgan from 725 AD. We found it upon the Greeks and Romans who had juries. It is not enough to charge someone to say that they are guilty. Now, some might come to this floor and they might say, well, what if we're being attacked on 9/11? What if there are planes flying at the Twin Towers? Obviously, we repel them. We repel any attack on our country. If there's a gentleman or a woman with a grenade launcher attacking our buildings or our Capitol, we use lethal force. You don't get due process if you're involved with actively attacking us, our soldiers, or our government. You don't get due process if you're overseas in a battle shooting at our soldiers. But that's not what we're talking about. The Wall Street Journal reported and said that the bulk of the drone attacks are signature attacks. They don't even know the name of the person. A line or a caravan is going from a place where we think there are bad people to a place where we think they might commit harm, and we kill the caravan, not the person. Is that the standard that we will now use in America? Will we use a standard for killing Americans to be that we thought you were bad, we thought you were coming from a meeting with bad people, and you were in a line of traffic, and so therefore you were fined for the killing? That is the standard we're using overseas. Is that the standard we're going to use here? I will speak today until the president responds and says, no, we won't kill Americans in cafes. No, we won't kill you at home in your bed at night. No, we won't drop bombs on restaurants. Is that so hard? It's amazing that the president will not respond. I've been asking this question for a month. It's like pulling teeth to get the president to respond to anything. And I get no answer. The president says he hasn't done it yet, and I'm to be comforted. You are to be comforted in your home. You are to be comforted in your restaurant. You are to be comforted online, communicating in your email that the president hasn't killed an American yet on the homeland. I will speak until I can no longer speak. I will speak as long as it takes until the alarm is sounded from coast to coast that our Constitution is important, that your rights to trial by jury are precious, that no American should be killed by a drone on American soil without first being charged with a crime, without first being found to be guilty by a court, that Americans could be killed in a cafe in San Francisco, or in a restaurant in Houston, or at their home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, is an abomination. It is something that should not and cannot be tolerated in our country. I don't rise to oppose John Brennan's nomination simply for the person. I rise today for the principle. The principle is one that as Americans we have fought long and hard for, and to give up on that principle, to give up on the Bill of Rights, to give up on the Fifth Amendment protection that says that no person shall be held without due process, that no person shall be held for a capital offense without being indicted. This is a precious American tradition and something we should not give up on easily.
For victims in tribal regions of Pakistan, Yemen and Afghanistan, it's the last sound heard before bloodshed ensues. A constant whirring that gets louder before it becomes visible. But for residents of the quiet coastal town of Aberporth in West Wales, the sound of looming carnage is synonymous with daily life.
This is the area where the RAF tests its Watchkeeper drone from. As you can see, there's one taking off behind me as we speak. In good weather, the drones take off throughout the day and during the night. And as you can hear, the noise is so high-pitched and dominating that local residents have called this area the Buzz Box.
The noise pollution serves as a reminder of the suffering that the unassumingly named unmanned aerial vehicles inflict elsewhere in the world.
For local people, the noise is a great disturbance because there's a whining noise and they fly over this area quite regularly. I don't think they're doing something good because they are killing people, okay? It's a different side that's been killed. The people, the British military are not being killed, but the Afghans are being killed, the Pakistanis are being killed, and the Yemenis are being killed. So killing people is killing people.
The Welsh Government billed it as a state-of-the-art technology park that would create 400 to 500 much-needed jobs for the community. More broken promises, the reality, a half-deserted site where the Ministry of Defence employs about 30 people to help test the Watchkeeper.
There is a sense of frustration in the area at the lack of imagination and development of the local economy. Clearly, the UAV technology development here has not delivered jobs to the area.
Federal than Federal Express.
You try a hide and destroy a freedom man. You sick agenda. We know you anti-American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913 corrupt in the system. Devalue dollar. Hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve controlled by Lucifer. He can see you lying.